And welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to disasters, chaos, crisis management, COVID 19, our own well being, anything that helps you, your organization, or your community reduce the suffering of negative impacts. Today, I wanted to kind of bring up something. It's a little off topic, but at the same time, it's something that's been bothering me over the last little while because it keeps cropping up. And to me, this feels a little bit outdated. It's some of the questions that are being asked by managers, human resource groups when seeking new employees. Now, all organizations today are looking at building teams, right? It's about the person making sure they're going to mesh well with the teams, not so much their skill levels. Sometimes it is, of course, depending on the role. But this is a lot of the stuff that you read in magazines, in trade articles, all different kinds of platforms. And some of the questions that are being asked drive me up the wall because I think they are completely outdated and don't really deserve a proper response. And there's two that come to mind that just drive me crazy. One has to do with, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, let me just get my little crystal ball and I'll tell you. That's impossible. No one knows. It's like they want you to say, oh, I'll be with you, a great employee with your organization. Maybe I'll be a manager or director or vice president, depending on where you're coming in the organization, adding value, and all this other crap. It goes back to a time when people used to have jobs that lasted 20, 30 years. You don't find that a lot anymore. A lot of the workforce, especially after my generation and millennials for sure, they're looking at moving a lot faster. They don't hang around. And I've worked with millennials, great bunch of people. They've taught me a lot on technology and new ways of thinking, which is fantastic. But they're not looking for these 20, 30-year jobs. So why ask them where they're going to be in 5 years? When research, and I've read this so many times, after a couple of years, they're already looking for the new challenge. So after a couple of years, in 5 years, their response is going to be, where are you going to be in 5 years? Not with you. So why even ask? It's an outdated question. It seems rather weird that we would ask this of anybody. It's as though we're looking for people who want to be dedicated, and almost marry our organizations, our communities and hang around forever. Well, no, we've all got different goals. We all want to move on. We all want to do different things. I'm not going to hang around, in 5 years and lie to you in this interview and tell you that, I am going to be there because I don't know where I'm going to be, the next day. I don't have a future, that's all written on a board somewhere. This is exactly what's going to happen. Anything can happen. Look what COVID has done to us, to organizations, individuals, communities, families. It's made incredible changes to our daily lives, how we shop, how we look in public, who we hang around with, how many we can hang around with. So I ask questions that are so outdated, where do you see yourself in 5 years? The other one that drives me crazy is, can you give us an example of a conflict and how you dealt with it? Correct me if I'm wrong. In this day and time, every organization should have some policies already in place on how to deal with that. Code of conduct, this question, I believe, goes back to the times before a lot of these policies were in place. It goes back to a time when people used to smoke in the office. And, I remember working in an office and, I'm not good with cigarette smoke at all. And you could still smell it in the cubicle walls, so you knew that this was a place that used to smoke. It goes back decades. How do you, when people used to yell and scream at each other, and all you would get from management is, oh, well, so-and-so's having a bad day, or just calm down, things will be okay. Oh, go home early or whatever, and everything will be fine tomorrow. Conflict now has a much bigger meaning. It's not just yelling and screaming or fisticuffs. Now we have situations where people that are, taking advantage of situations, browbeating people, in meetings, contradicting people, not letting people speak at meetings or provide their opinions, doing something unethical that may be breaking the organizational code of conduct, all of that now falls under a conflict umbrella. And all of that has to have a policy, with it. And most organizations now do have that. So they are outlined. So if you want me to answer what I'm going to do with a conflict, well, you tell me what your policy is first, because a lot of them, I have to go to my manager and complain, or I have to go to a specific HR mailbox and log a complaint, or a phone line, something along those lines, that's in place. That's how I make it so that it's anonymous. If sometimes if it's just a disagreement in a meeting or an approach to something, it doesn't mean it's a conflict. It just means you have a different opinion, you know, and the decision maker will make the decision for you and you just follow whatever it is they said, you know. But how do you deal with conflict? That doesn't happen much in offices anymore, because of all the phone lines, as I said, and the different measures in place. If you're uncomfortable talking to somebody, you can log a complaint anonymously. If someone said something bad to you, a bad joke, we've seen that more often than not. Someone who says a bad off-color joke, that offends a person or a group of people, or sends the wrong email around with a wrong attachment that probably shouldn't have made it into the office environment to start with, those kind of things you can complain about. That can be a conflict of yourself, that, hey, 20 people on this list of 21 laughed at this incident, but I'm offended. That can still be a conflict, an internal conflict, and you have to be able to have measures in place to be able to convey that to your organization so they can resolve the situation and make sure emails don't go around. So asking me, examples of conflict and what would I do if I encountered a conflict in a work environment, I'm just going to point them right back to your HR policy and say, well, you tell me, what do you expect me to do? Gone are the days where I just get up from my desk angrily, stomp down the hallway, and go to Bob's cubicle and say, Bob, you, rah, 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 rah. That's not going to happen anymore. That's not the way it works anymore. So these two questions, about conflict and, where I'm going to be in 5 years, I don't understand why they're there. Don't ask me this kind of stuff. They're both completely outdated. And you may have asked them a long time ago when there were no policies, and when you were hiring people and expected them to stick around for 20 years, they may have been applicable. They're not in today's environment. Don't ask. What that actually kind of says to me is that for all the progression that different executives and organizations promote themselves as, turn around and ask questions that are outdated by decades. Are you really as progressive as you think you are then? Do you have the right policies in place if you're asking questions that really aren't applicable anymore? Anyway, that's my rant for today. Thumbs up if you liked what I had to say, thumbs down if you don't. Leave a comment, just let me know either way. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. In the meantime, stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave a message and let me know what your thoughts are. If you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about something related to business continuity, disaster management, COVID, personal well-being, anything that's relatable to those subjects, you can reach me through my LinkedIn profile, which is in the video description. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. In the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.